On August 30th, the ECM Record Label released a marvelous new CD that features the renowned Danish String Quartet. Called Keel Road, this recording explores folk music from countries around the North Sea. The North Sea served as the main communication and transportation channel for Northern Europe of what is now a bygone era. Trade goods, culture, and music crossed the North Sea on ships run by men who were brave enough to venture into the abyss. Traveling from Denmark to Norway to England to Ireland, Keel Road explores folk music from these areas in string quartet arrangements that have been created by the members of the Danish String Quartet. Folk music from Scandinavia and other parts of Northern Europe is something that the Danish Quartet love doing. This is their third CD that puts folk music front and center, the other two recordings being their discs Woodworks and Last Leaf. This, in addition to the renowned recordings of the standard string quartet literature, Keel Road is a fun and totally engaging CD, and it is with great pleasure that I get to talk with one of the violinists of the Danish Quartet today, Rune Tonsgaard Sørensen. Hey, Rune, nice to meet you here over Zoom.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for having me.
Mm. Uh, Keel Road is just terrific, and from what I understand, folk music is a big part of your upbringing. I was reading, apparently your dad moved from the Faroe Islands to Denmark, and you grew up around folk music. What was that like? Can you talk about that a bit?
Yeah, so the traditional music from the Faroe Islands, but also from Denmark and Scandinavia was basically the soundtrack of my childhood in many
Mm.
ways. My parents, they were always singing in our home. Um, they would take me to all these dance evenings, gatherings, folk music festivals. You name it. And everybody was playing or dancing or singing while the kids were playing. Yeah. And then I got my first instrument when I was three, I believe it was. I got a tiny, actually, little accordion that I
Huh.
I tried to play without any big success. But the year after I got myself a violin, and the violin is probably the most common folk music instrument in Scandinavia, like in many other countries. Um, and that resonated with me, and I continued playing that instrument for my entire life until now.
Mhm.
So the folk music has been really important to me, and now it has also been to the quartet.
Mhm. One of the things I was wondering about is there a difference between, like, is there a noticeable difference between folk music from the Faroe Islands and music from Denmark? And if there are differences, what are they? What would they be?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good question. I believe that not so many people know about the tradition from the Faroe Islands. Neither the Danish tradition, but especially the Faroe Islands tradition is quite special because um, there have never been an instrumental music tradition up there. It has all been vocal,
Mm,
and their folk music is songs and ballads that they sing while they dance this old medieval dance that I think originated in Central Europe. But the Faroe Islands is the only place that we know of that kept this tradition of this chain dance alive to this day. And while they dance, they sing these ballads. Often they will be more than 100 verses.
mm,
Very, very long ballads based on folklore, sagas from different places. And it's really interesting how the melodies developed through the years, through the centuries. They're quite odd and really hauntingly beautiful. Um, they don't sound like anything else I've heard before. So it's really a unique music tradition they have up there. And you know, what we have been doing is trying to translate these amazing melodies into a string quartet arrangement, and that has been a great and fun exercise for us for sure.
Hmm. Can you talk us through that process? Like, how does a quartet go about, first of all, choosing a melody and then harmonizing it and figuring out what they're going to do? How does that work?
Yeah, the first step is obviously to find a great melody that resonates with us and that we know works well on a concert stage. Yeah, keep in mind that folk music traditionally has been music that served a very clear function, either it be for dancers for a dance floor, or can be the community house or at a gathering or party where you sing together or something like that. It's not until recent times where the folk music was brought onto the concert stage. So the first step is finding a good melody that would work on in a concert, and that, yeah, as I said, has a clear character or a story. And then the next step, I guess, is to try to emphasize that narrative or that character in the melody. And then, you know, we've been playing together for, yeah, more than two decades now, and we've been playing many of the big classical masters. And from that, we've gained some experience, I would say, in terms of how to write for a string quartet. What kind of voicings can we use? How do you write a chord so it sounds great for a string quartet? We have built up quite a lot of tools that we can use to underline the character of the folk tune. Harmony, we use, different harmonies. We use structure, think about form. Sometimes we add little interludes, outros, intros, more
Hmm.
composed sections to the pieces, because also these tunes are often very, very simple. It's when we talk about the fairy traditions, it's only like one line of music. In the Scandinavian tradition, the typical form would be an A and a B part, sometimes a C part if it's very
Hmm.
advanced. But it's very simple music, and you need to come up with some ideas, so it makes sense on the stage. And yeah, we try our best to also to challenge the traditions a little bit, and also also ourselves in terms of techniques and ways of writing for a string quartet.
Hmm.
So it's a great stimulating creative process for us to do these arrangements.
And so this is your third CD of folk music.
Hmm.
How have audiences been responding to it? Like it must just go over great. And why is it so important for the quartet to promote and champion Scandinavian folk music and folk music from other areas as well?
Well, the reaction that we often get is one that we never anticipated when we started this whole journey more than 10 years ago. We slowly built it up, a repertoire back then, and recorded our first album, Woodworks, as you mentioned in your introduction. And that's 10 years ago this year. And we simply just did the album because we loved the music, and actually didn't have any other intentions than to share music that we personally liked. Um, but it turned out that, a lot of people, um, resonated with that music. Um, and we've been asking ourselves the question, why? But I think one reason could be that a good melody is universal. So,
Mhm.
we can play these Scandinavian tunes all over Europe, in North America, and everybody, it awakens something in people. There's maybe a feeling of home, or something that people can relate to in some way, even though they haven't heard the music before, even though they might even not have a relation to Scandinavia at all. But yeah, a good melody ignites something in all of us, I think.
Mhm.
So I think, and then after that experience with Woodworks, we were really motivated to keep on playing this music because it also
Mhm.
shows who we are and where we come from and our culture, which can be really nice to show when we travel.
Absolutely. On this latest disc, it's not only music from Denmark, but you've got music from Norway, you've got music from England and Ireland as well.
Mm.
And I'm just sort of curious, how did the quartet gather these melodies? Like, how did that process work?
So we so it's all about research. When you are a folk musician, when you play folk music, uh, most folk musicians have like this common repertoire that you meet up and play in jam sessions at festivals.
Mhm.
Um, so um, some of us in the quartet has quite a lot of tunes in the back of our heads that we already know and that we thought could work well in a string quartet arrangement. But it's also about, searching for new tunes, and there are tons of various ways of doing that. Obviously, nowadays you can find most things online.
Mhm.
Um, so for instance, on this new album, I found an old wax cylinder recording by chance on Spotify of a woman singing an old Danish song about a shoemaker who travels to the Middle East to confess his or her sins. And the recording is from 1907. It's a very early recording done by her husband, who was um, a sort of a Bela Bartok or Kodai of Denmark. He was traveling around the country, gathering songs and folklore, recording it, documenting it. And he recorded his own wife, and she was singing this song. And it was just so incredibly beautiful and strong. She was sitting there just by herself singing the song, and we wanted to feature that song on the album, and it also inspired me to write a new tune called "Once a Shoemaker" that was inspired by her song. Um, Another example could be Frederick's love, Frederick, our cellist,
Mhm.
uh, for Irish music. So he dug up these amazing tunes by Tuatha O'Carolan, the Irish composer, who has just like this catalog, amazing pile of great tunes, all of them, and he arranged four of those. So it's about searching for the good tunes, and they are out there, and if they are
Yeah.
not, you just have to find them and write them yourselves, I guess.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That recording of that singer, it's on a cylinder. And when I first heard it, I was, wow,
Yeah.
what is that? It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Um, the third track on the disc is, help me out with the pronunciation here, Storm Pålsson. Am I
Hmm.
saying that right? Uh,
Yeah.
First of all, what does the title translate to? And can you talk about the Dreamers Circus Band and your
Mhm.
friendship with Ala Carr, who is playing Cittern on that track? Can you talk about
Yeah.
that track a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. In 2022, the two groups, Danish String Quartet and my other band, Dreamer Circus, were invited to do a collaboration on Roskilde Festival, which is the biggest festival in Denmark, one of the largest pop rock, hip hop, world music festivals in Northern Europe. And so we did an arrangement of one of Arle's pieces called Storm Polskan. Storm, you get that word, of course.
Mhm.
Polska is a traditional dance that is very, very popular, especially in Sweden, where he's from. It's also quite popular in Denmark and Norway also in different variations. But in Sweden, the Polska is sort of the big melody type and dance. So he wrote this Storm Polskan, and it was just so fun to play it at Roskilde Festival a couple of years ago. So we wanted to feature it on the album. And since it is Arle's piece and we already have had an arrangement for all 6 players, we invited Arle and Nikolai, the pianist, to the studio to record that track for Keel Road. And yeah, I've been playing with Dreamer Circus for 15 years now. So it's also been quite a long journey for the trio. And I guess, of course, many things overlap between the 2 groups, and it makes a lot of sense to play together. And we did in several occasions already. So we're very happy that they wanted to join the quartet album.
Fantastic. You've mentioned it already. There is music written by you on the CD. There's the Shoemaker track. One of the other things that I found really interesting is there are these folk melodies, and then it's almost like an added section on to the end of the track where you yourself have composed it. I'm thinking here in particular of like Fair Island Jig and the Chat. How did those come about? Like, why did you decide to sort of tack on this extra music onto the original melody?
Yeah, but then it's a matter of trying to make an architecture of a piece of a tune. And in folk music traditions, it's really a big thing. It's quite normal, especially in the Irish and British traditions, to make like these sets where you play several melodies, back to back in a row in a set. And since this new album is, looking a little bit more westward this time, instead of just being Scandinavian music, we included music from the British Isles this time. So we wanted to sort of feature that tradition on the album of having sets of tunes. In terms of the Chat you mentioned, which is a jig on one of the last tracks, it's the middle jig of a set of two jigs and a reel. And the Chat was actually composed and got its name from Chattanooga in the US. And was written by Frederick and me, on the backstage we were about to play a concert, and we had this dream of writing a tune together. So on the backstage we were warming up a bit, and then we started jamming a little bit, and some little motifs and some pieces of a melody appeared. and then Frederick, he sort of finished the arrangement of the tune, and it ended up on the album. So there are many ways to go about writing music, and this was definitely a fun way of doing it. So doing it really together this time.
Fantastic, fantastic. The disc is so good. I'm going to wrap up the conversation by asking, I'm presuming there are future plans to record more folk music. This is part of the quartet, right? Like you guys are going to be doing more of this?
It's hard to say in what shape though, because now we released 3 folk music albums, and we constantly try to renew ourselves and think what we can do to contribute to the genre also. And there might be another disc coming out in the future, but how it's gonna sound, I have no idea. Maybe we'll try to be bold enough to write even more material ourselves. Maybe it's not gonna be so folky, the next one. Maybe it's gonna be with more guests. I don't know, and probably it's good not to know right at this moment. But we'll for sure keep searching, and we'll keep playing the tunes, because the traditional music is just wonderful, and we enjoy it a lot. So yeah.
Absolutely. Perfect. Rune, this has been a real treat for me. We here at the station are big fans of the Danish Quartet. I think we have all your recordings in our system. Congratulations on an excellent disc, Keel Road. And thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me today, or maybe I should say talk.
Yeah, very good.
for taking the time to talk to me today. This has been a thrill. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.